Hi, this is Nathan Tintle. In this Learning Goal video, we will discuss conditional proportions and the concept of association. We will use the good and bad perceptions data set to talk about this learning goal. In the good and bad perceptions data set, 15 people were positive when they were asked the good year question. 4 people were positive when they were asked the bad year question. Is that evidence of an association? Well, let's remember what association means. Association means that the value of one variable, question wording, gives you information about the other, perception of the year. Association means that the value of one variable gives you information about the other. So does the way you are asking the question change the likelihood of saying positive or negative? Well, we can compare the 15 to the 4, right? No. More people were asked the good year question in the first place, 18, compared to only 12 who were asked the bad year question. So we don't want to compare the counts from this two-way table. We want to compare the conditional proportions. This allows us to control for the fact that the group sizes might be different. The explanatory variable here is question wording. And so the typical approach is to compute conditional proportions within each group created by the explanatory variable. In this case, that means good year is one of the categories of the explanatory variable. So we're going to compute the proportion of people with positive perceptions within the good year group, and then compute the proportion of people with positive perceptions in the bad year group. This gives us 83%. 83% of people who were asked the good year question indicated a positive perception of their year, compared to only 33% of people in the bad year group who also indicated a positive perception of their year. This is preliminary evidence of an association because 0.83 is different than 0.33. The difference is 0.5 and not 0. If there was no association at all, the difference between those proportions would be 0. In other words, there'd be no difference in your perception of the year based on the question you were asked. A couple of words of caution. When we see this association like we do here, is that statistically significant? In other words, is it beyond what we would expect to occur just by chance? Well, that's a great question. It's one we're going to talk about in other learning goal videos. Second, typically when you compute conditional proportions, you look within groups created by the explanatory variables. It doesn't make as much sense to go in the other direction. You could compute conditional proportions within response variable groups, but typically, conceptually, those don't make as much sense in the context of the problem. There are, however, cases where the explanatory response variable relationship is not so clear, so it's hard to say which one's the explanatory, which one's the response. In those cases, then, it doesn't matter as much which direction you compute your conditional proportions.